Do you feel like every content creator has that one video that, just changes their life?
Like the influencer marketing thing is a 3,000 crore industry at the moment. I was stuck at 25k for the longest of times. And, I went to Delhi and I just posted about the places there, about fashion and shopping, street shopping and all of that. And suddenly one night I was just scrolling my reel section and I see one of the videos is just, views are reaching to millions, like 1 million, 2 million in like days, in like a span of 4 to 5 days. And with that, my audience also boomed from 25 to 50 within 6 to 7 days.
Aesthetic versus content, right? What would your ranking be?
Content is the king, to put out content which are more relatable.
People are not going to university anymore. They're hustling after class 12 and they're like, I want to be something on Instagram. I want to make a shirt and sell it.
Influencer who has a following from above 500k to a million, they can earn up to 15 lakhs for one story.
15 lakhs?
15 lakhs for one story.
15 lakhs?
Yeah, 15.
Guys, welcome to Infinite Health. It's a very exciting episode today. I have Megadasgupta on board. She's one of the top influencers in Calcutta and she went from a doctor to being who she is today. We talk about social media, we talk about vanity and we talk about so much more. If you're someone who's making content, I think this episode is for you. Now, before we proceed, I would like to request all of you to please click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. We put a lot of effort in making this content and the more you subscribe, the bigger the show we can make. So please go ahead and subscribe. Megha, welcome to Infinite Health. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Megha, I've been following your journey for a while now and most people know you as a content creator, but you're also a doctor. Tell me more.
So, content creation and my medical journey started at the same point. 2015 was the year when I started my medical college, and then at that time, of course, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that, medical college is a very tough curriculum. Like the studies, the entire thing is so stressful that, content creation for me was like a passion project. I used to come back home during those sunset hours. I used to maybe shoot some content and post it online. So it was like a breath of fresh air for me. So I think it both started together. And right now I'm so happy I was consistent about it till so long. And yeah, here I am.
So when did you exactly start? 2015?
15, right.
But at that time, the whole content creation world was so new. I remember beerbiceps was just coming out at that point of time. Right. What made you think of content creation in the first place?
So honestly, I was not doing it in the thing that it was like an influencer or something, because at that time these words were not even there. So it was just me. Even reels were not there at that time. So it was just me posting food content or my personal experiences, which I went to a cafe or something maybe like that, and I was posting it online, making it a little informative for the audience. And my sister at that time I remember blogging was much in people used to write blogs and everything. So my sister was one of them. So she told me that, why don't you keep on posting them, make more interactive videos and everything. But of course, I was a little hesitant at that time because, doing a serious profession like medical and doing this, and obviously there was a point where I felt a little shy, very shy, and kind of I was in my own bubble that, okay, fine. I maybe I'll do food videos where I am not visible, so that I don't have to show myself out there too much, but I'll consistently post content.
But do you feel like content creator, that word is being more accepted now by families, parents, people in general?
I think so, but of course you cannot see. For me, I feel that when I go to a social gathering, maybe when you place medical, like a doctor and a content creator, of course the weightage goes towards being a doctor. Right. You can't even imagine a doctor taking such a line where there's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what's gonna be the next thing to do and everything. So there's this uncertainty, but I feel I can accept that uncertainty. The reason being that I'm very passionate about it, and of course I feel for the people who are coming up with new content and everything, I would not recommend them to kind of leave what they're doing and just jump into content creation, because that's not a thing to do, because being financially independent at till a certain point with your normal job that you're doing, that's very important. Otherwise, even your passion becomes something that you're struggling with. That is what I feel. So I think right now in this year, like this year, people are taking content creation seriously.
I actually want to ask you another question on this, since you mentioned, how you switch careers from medicine to content creation. You also switched the topics. I mean, as a content creator, you could have easily picked, medical stuff to talk about.
Right.
But you actually chose a completely different topic, something maybe you love. I mean, could you tell us more about that?
So, like I mentioned that, content creation for me when I started my medical college was a different passion project. Like I was posting about things which I like to do apart from my medical curriculum. So, of course, I get this very often that, why don't you talk about, women health and all those things, because that would pick up really well. But I felt that, when I started, it was something to do which I wanted to do apart from my medical curriculum. And I wanted to continue that. So that is the main reason why, I did not choose health to be a topic to speak upon. Maybe in future, I might on a separate page or a separate thing. But at the moment, I really want to do and really want to focus on the niche that I have built up on all these years.
So there's so many people who are looking to, start their content journey. And because, how important is it to select a niche?
I think it's very important, because if you don't select your niche, what happens is that your audience trend does not grow. So people need to know what they are following you first. For example, I used to do a lot of mixed content. I used to post a lot about food, fashion and all of that. So with time, even I realized this very late in my journey of content creation that, if there is no fixed niche, people don't know what to follow you for and come back to your page for. And I think that is what is really important to kind of make your niche.
So it's almost like, that niche is your brand identity in some way.
I think so. I feel so.
And like, because, it's so easy to fall into that trap that, let's do this, because, honestly, like this podcast is an advice for me as well, because I'm a young content creator, podcaster. And there's so many times, like, I feel like I can speak about so many things, like I want to speak about public health, I want to speak about diseases and, speak about mental health, spirituality, everything under the sun. So, like for all the content creators or influencers, people like me who are just starting out on their journey, I mean, how would you advise them in terms of like where to start?
So I think you don't actually understand what you're good at until and unless you start posting that content. So I think the person who will start out, they should not think about the fact that, okay, fine, one fun morning they wake up and they think that, okay, fine, I'm good at fashion, so I'm going to post about fashion or about home decor. So I think you should start with experimenting what you're good at. You can post what kind of content you like, and then slowly understand your algorithm, understand, what your audience is consuming more. Then only find out your niche, what you're good at, because until and unless you start posting, you will not understand what you're good at. So I think starting out is very important at this moment.
That's really good advice, because I think the second part of this question that I would want to ask is that it's one thing to start, and that's, absolutely, like you need to start. But the second thing that I've found, which is very important, is developing parasocial relationships with your audience. Like, it's so difficult for people to create those parasocial relationships because, weirdly, I found that most content creators are actually introverts. Right. I mean, my first question to you, are you an introvert?
I have been an introvert all my life. I think very recently I've transformed myself to being an ambivert. But if you ask me, deep down, I'm an introvert for sure.
But does that affect you when you started out? Did that affect you? Like, what will people think?
Yeah, I think I remember my first brand project. I used to, and it was just me and my camera. Still had to take like a million takes because I thought, okay, fine. Like, I was not confident about myself, and it's very normal, I feel. But deep down, I have always been an introvert. Even now, after creating so much of content, even before starting this podcast, I was always a little anxious or something keeps on, kicking me from inside. But I think that's my inner introvert nature, and I don't think so I can change that. But of course, I can be an ambivert more and more so as I progress in this field. So.
But even because you've been doing this for so long, like how do you remain true to yourself in the sense that when we are creating content, I mean, obviously we are trying to be as honest as possible about ourselves, but there'll always be a slight difference, like, so when you're putting yourself out there, like how honest do you think you can be so that you start developing those parasocial relationships?
I think that, for example, being authentic is of course something that's very important. But I think once and for all, if you're not authentic, it will very well show on your feed, because nowadays people are, can judge you very easily nowadays. So it's very, very easy to kind of understand what the kind of, because once you see somebody's profile or feed, I think you get a perception about what, like, how the person is. You get a, even if they're not posting about everything about their life, you kind of understand or get a, highlight, because people are not posting about their bad things or bad times. They're only posting about the good things. But still, I mean, if you're following somebody very closely or for a longer time, you will understand. I think that, if there's not that kind of connectivity with your audience, like maybe it can be something as simple as, what you're doing in your day. If you're posting something on your story or something like that, there should be a connectivity with your audience, which I feel is very important. And I think that's lacking nowadays, because we just want to show the best part on social
Yeah.
media, and it's very normal. Like, I wouldn't be maybe posting about my bad days. Maybe some days I would, just to kind of get that kind of help from social media to kind of make me feel better that I'm having a bad day. What about you? But mostly we are not likely to kind of click a bad day selfie or a bad day picture and just post it randomly online. So it's very difficult to kind of understand.
But I think that's a superpower. Like, like especially if you're feeling bad on some day, and to put yourself out there and say that, hey, I'm having a bad day. Like, because there's so many people like me, and I'm right now I'm speaking as a consumer. When I see posts of people, and sometimes I feel, like these people have so much courage. Like, they're having a bad day and they're actually going online and they're putting a story and saying that I'm having a bad day. Like, how difficult is that for you to come out and say that I'm having a bad day? Because it's easy to put out good content, but it's way more difficult to put out bad content. I mean, I don't mean bad content. I mean,
yeah, bad days.
but do you also feel that this also comes with consistency? Like, because, the more consistent people are, like, you get used to what they're saying, you get used to what they feel like, you get used to their body language. And I have seen this personally. There's so many people I follow who I found very irritating in the beginning, like genuinely very irritating. But for some reason, I followed them. And then now I've become a fan. And I'm like, oh my God, the content is so entertaining. Like, I want to watch,
Right.
and then I'll binge watch all the reels. The same person I found irritating. So, like, do you feel like it is the consistency which shapes that feature?
Right, I'm sure. And again, I think the niche comes into play in this. So I've seen, I think you know about this influencer called Nancy Tyagi. She used to post a lot of content which people did not like, and then she started making like her own dresses and content. So the content shifted like that. So I think again, like the niche that you pick up, so if your audience is glued to that niche, I think people will want to come back to your feed and see it again and again for that thing. So I think again niche comes into play in this kind of a
But we
category.
were just talking about this just before the podcast, like how there are certain videos which just like, it catapults you to a different level, right? Do you feel like every content creator has that one video that, just changes their life? Or do you feel like there can also be a section of people who can have like just consistent content and just like, slowly become big?
So Instagram algorithm changes every month, I feel. So when I started out, IGTV was like a hit at that time. I was posting content continuously there. Then static posts, and then reel, like video formats, and reel came into being back like in 2020 during COVID. And people were like, okay, fine, like it's reaching out to a larger mass, so why not just create content? And following does not matter at that time, because even your reels, if it reaches 1 million, if you have like an audience of maybe 500, your reels can boom and reach millions. So I think reels is like a big outlet to more content creators coming in this space. And for me, if I share my story, I started out in 2015, like I mentioned, and I was stuck at 25K for the longest of times. And I went to Delhi and I just posted about the places there, about fashion and shopping, street shopping and all of that. And suddenly one night I was just scrolling my reel section, and I see one of the videos is just the views are reaching to millions, like 1 million, 2 million in like days, in like a span of 4 to 5 days. And with that, my audience also boomed from 25 to 50 within like 6 to 7 days.
Wow.
And it was like a shift for me because I was patiently waiting for that day to come.
So that is that one video which really catapulted you.
Right. For
And
me, yes.
and was there consistent growth after that, like for every video that you?
No, not at all. So some videos would be like stuck at a specific number of views and then following would not come. But then for me, I feel even now, I think that how the algorithm is working is like, you have your hit reels which are doing very well, and then you have a standard amount of views which is almost on all of your videos. So I think that's how the algorithm is
So would
working.
you also say that luck is an important factor when it comes to content creation, just for the audiences who are wanting to start out?
Yeah, definitely. Because you'll see the number of likes and views a random video gets nowadays when you're scrolling past. So, of course, it's about the luck. And nowadays, I think the kind of content people are consuming, it's about the content for sure, but people are also like mindlessly scrolling. And nowadays, what Instagram is really picking about is, the number of shares. So, even if it's a cringe content and you want to share it to your friend, it's getting shared multiple times, right? So even a cringe content can have views. So it also depends like what kind of content you want to create. So if you have a niche and you want to stick to your niche, you have to be very patient about when that kind of content
Because you
reaches
have to
its
wait for a
masses.
time when that boom happens.
Exactly.
So, I something that I really wonder about is that you spoke about reels, right? But what about real life? Because, when we talk about content creators and when we talk about social media influencers as per se, so, when you went to Delhi, you were influencing people in that sense. That was your real life. Like, do you think that content creators can just be content creators and not be influencing in the real life for some reason?
I think you're right because I feel that my main. I'll talk about the way I create content. So for me, I felt that I whenever I'm seeing something, I feel there was this phase of my life when whatever I was seeing, I wanted to make a content out of it because the creative mind in me always wanted to make something or the other with whatever I see. So and for me, I feel that when I wanted to create content, I firstly was, I wanted to maintain my feed in a very aesthetic way. So aesthetic way, maybe it does not look that way, but I wanted to make it aesthetic. So I would put elements into it and, make it look a certain way. But now I feel like, after putting out so much content, I felt that, making it look a certain way, the aesthetic way, it's not the thing that, you should put
Works.
across. What really worked for me and my audience was that, putting out that kind of information which would be a takeaway than maintaining that aesthetic feed or being that perfect Instagram page that you like to look at.
So this is a very good information that you brought on, because this is something that so many people feel that, they feel that the aesthetics have to be designed in a certain way, and like it has to be a certain way, where they forget about the content that needs to be there or the reality it needs to be there. But just exploring this entire conversation, um, aesthetic versus content, right? What would your ranking be?
So I think content is the king nowadays. So even I suggest brand pages also that I work with a lot of fashion brands. So what happens is that they want to maintain a certain aesthetic and a certain niche for their page because just to have that certain amount of aesthetic, brand aesthetic, what you say, a specific color or a pattern or something like that. But I tell them that even if you're a brand page, you're not a content creator, try to put that kind of personal touch to your brand so that even the people who want to buy from your brand, they have that kind of pull, because nowadays social media is all about that personal touch.
So do you feel like maybe the audiences are getting put off by so much branding or so much aesthetic or color palettes and everything, like you say?
Definitely, because whenever I am posting a branded content, of course, if you compare the reach, that's not, because obviously, even if I see a branded content, I would scroll past it. So it's there. People don't consume branded content. Of course, if you are if you're taking that brand up, and if you're promoting it in a very integrated manner, and you are maybe the people when they're watching your reel, they hardly understand when the brand actually came into being. I think that kind of a content, if you're taking a brand partnerships, really work. But a proper like a branded content, it does not work nowadays.
There are natural content creators on one end, and then there are these new varieties of regional influencers, right? Because content has become an economy, Like it is a content creator economy,
Mhm.
and there are so many people trying to get in, right? And everyone can't be a national content creator. Everyone cannot be a beerbiceps. Everyone cannot be a rajshamani. Everyone cannot be a food farmer, right? Do you think content creators can also have like be regional, be smaller, or have their own regional influences? And to what end?
I think, yeah, I mean, of course, see, even if you have a following of maybe like 10K or 5K, of course, those 5-10K people are your community, right? It does not have to be like, because of course, you are putting out some kind of a content maybe once a week or once in a month that, that is attracting them, the reason why they are following you. So I think that that does not matter nowadays, the kind of following you have. It does matter the kind of, content you're putting out and the kind of views you're getting, because you always have the option to not follow that person and just consume the content. So it's always there. So I think there's a lot of scope. And I think for me also that, I started speaking in Hindi in some of my content. So there's a lot of clash that, you're a Bengali. Why do you speak in, Hindi? Why can't you speak? Because you're like promoting or maybe talking about Kolkata. So why don't you like speak in Bengali? So I feel that, it's my way of saying, or maybe my way of kind of putting out a thing that can be consumed by a bigger mass. The reason why I speak in a proper Hindi English mix, because I think that is something that's picked up by a larger audience. So I think talking or making content in a particular regional language, it does not actually restrict you, but I think you don't have to be bound by a
By
certain,
anything for
by
that
any
matter.
language.
Megha, talking about national influencers, Beer Biceps is one of the biggest national influencer right now. He just got an award also for it.
Mhm.
What do you think he did right?
I think that, from what I've seen through his videos, the kind of questions he asks, I think it's very personal also, but also given the fact that, you want to know about it, but it's also something very up close and personal. I think those questions which people don't dare asking very easily, I think those actually kind of made him a little stand out from other influencers or people doing the same.
And I watch his podcast as well. I'm very tempted to ask you कि आप death के बारे में क्या सोचते हैं?
No, अभी तो मैं कुछ नहीं सोचती, but yeah, I mean, I could go deep.
Yeah,
Thinking about
no, but that's true. But I sometimes feel very tempted.
But,
Like,
but
when I
it
started my
sounds very
podcast,
intimidating when you once you ask something like this, you go into a totally different
मेघा
zone.
क्या आप खुश हैं? क्यों खुश हैं आप? But frankly, like, because money is such a big topic,
Huh.
money is something that everyone keeps raving about. Because I remember, do you know this guy Ashneergrover?
Right.
He was a shark in
Mhm.
Shark Tank. He made this into such a big thing. He was sitting in Delhi in some conference and he said, and he said in his whole Delhi Tashan ki, मैं अगर आपको बता दूं ना कि इन्फ्लुएंसर्स कितना कमाते हैं आप रो देंगे like अपनी 9 to 5 जॉब छोड़ देंगे, right? So just speaking about the money, even Tanmay Bhatt recently he made this statement where he said that like the top 5% influencers earn more money than actors, right? Because actors do one film or whatever,
Right.
but most of these influencers are constantly making money. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So from the kind of studies I have done, so a influencer who has a following from above 500K to a million, they can earn up to 15 lakhs for one story.
15
So,
lakhs.
15 lakhs for one story.
15 lakhs.
Yeah, 15. So that is the kind of standards it is there in the market right now. And I think it's a lot.
But do you
kind
think
of.
those are national brands, or like even like local brands pay that kind of money? Or is it like a benchmark? Like, is there a calculation?
No, I think it's their media kit that they have, like a certain amount of charges that they charge, usually for a certain type of brand or what matches their niche. So usually, like influencers, they have their own setup of charges, irrespective of the brand they are doing. So I think as per that is what I've seen and I've read that, that is the kind of charges that are being implied nowadays.
Wow, that's crazy. Guys, stop all your jobs. Just focus on content creation. No, but that's insane. I mean, but I know, like, of course, like we watch reels and we hear so much about the money people are making. But there's this Nikhil.Kamath podcast called WTF. Then he had all these podcasters, influencers in a round table. And the one question he asked all of them is that what is the shelf life of a creator? And they all said that all creators come with a certain amount of shelf life, because at some point people start becoming a little redundant, like people, like it's almost like the disruption industry. Like at one point everyone gives way and someone disrupts the other, right? And he's dethroned. How do you stay relevant? That's my like top question. Like, how do you stay relevant even after you've achieved success, and then you need to keep at it?
So for me, like I mentioned, the content getting copied a lot of times and new people coming into being. So for me, initially I used to kind of not understand why this is happening and why this is happening to me. I used to take it as very seriously. But the I always have this with each and every brand that I take up or whatever, like personal content also. I feel that, how can I level up the game? So even if that gets copied, I can, revive it back. So I always feel the need of doing something different each and every time I post a content. That is what I always have in mind. But of course, if you are doing a certain niche like fashion, especially, it will look a little repetitive. But always just make sure that, whatever content you are personally posting in your page, it should be a little different from what you have done before. Otherwise, your audience also gets a little consumed. Okay, fine, she's posting the same thing, I've seen this. So these things always happens because as an audience you also want to consume something fresher each and every time. So that always is there.
But do you also feel like the content creator, because see, ultimately you're making a distribution network, you're building a community, right? So do you feel like all content creators should think about a end goal business that could help them in their content creation journey? Because when there is a business attached to it, it could be like anything. It could be a D2C brand, it could be an Ayurvedic brand, a health fitness brand, or something. Like, even if they're not white labeling it, even if they're getting it from someone, do you feel like a business needs to be attached to a content creator?
I think it should be, because I think if you're marketing for other brands and the brand is getting a lot of business
Traction.
through you, then why not have something of your own which can be a plan B as well in on the sides of your content creation. So I think if you're an influential content creator who is giving a lot of business and sales and traction to other brands, why not have your own thing which you can give back to your audience also. So I think it's a great plan B as well as like with your content creation journey.
So since we're talking about content creators, climbing up the ladder, I mean, there's so many agencies who come up and sign these influencers up. I mean, where do you place content creators and agencies together?
So there could be two ways. For example, if a agency is managing a content creator, they can manage every brand they're taking up and they can direct them. So there's a particular contract that goes and they get a specific amount of cut through the per brand deals. And in terms of, for example, I'm not attached to any agency at the moment. So for the brand deals which come individually from an agency, so whatever commercials I'm charging, they do put up a certain amount of commission of them, and then they give it to the brand and then the approvals are done. So this is how it works.
But was that a personal choice, like where you said that I won't let an agency manage me so that you have more options, or do you feel like it was something that agencies are unfair in general?
I think I wouldn't say the word unfair, but of course, I feel that once you hand over your credentials to an agency, there are good sides and bad sides. But for me at the moment, I don't want to give away that personal touch that I have with the brands, the personal connectivity I have with brands, which gets difficult at times and overwhelming because I can't manage a lot of things. So it's always better to start off with hiring a manager who will deal with you on a one-to-one basis than going and signing up with an agency at once.
So, Megha, there are so many studies now, and there are so many people who are saying this, that the admission rate to different universities, and I know this is a US study, but I think this partly also applies to India, is that people are not going to university anymore. They're hustling after class 12, and they're like, I want to be something on Instagram. I want to make a shirt and sell it. Because you brought out a very good point that, you could have a community of 5,000 people or 10,000 people, and you could just sell shirts to them.
Yeah.
Right? So what are your views on that? Because there are students, because as millennials, we were brought up with that notion that, listen, you have to go to college, you have to study hard, you have to do a job, and then ये सब side में कर लेना.
Right.
Like, even in a liberal family, ये सब side में कर लेना, ये सब नहीं चलेगा.
I've heard the same as well. So I can
Right.
relate.
So you cannot not go to college after class 12. And for Americans, they have social security, so it's still okay. But for Indians, it's almost unheard of. But people are doing that. My editors, and if they're listening to this, they are probably 19, 20 years old. And they are not in college right now. They're editing our reels and videos, and we are literally dependent on them.
Right.
So, my question really is that what is the financial situation of this? Like, do you feel like someone can really being consistent? Of course, if someone is bad, they won't. But if people are consistent enough that there is money for everyone in this.
So nowadays, I have read somewhere that in like the influencer marketing thing is a 3,000 crore industry at the moment, and it's not just the influencers. The people who are working for the influencers, be it like the agencies, the people who are behind running those agencies. It's a proper team for each and every influencers also right now. So it's a lot of manpower and a lot of people working here. So for them also, it's a huge prospect. And usually like these are freshers who just pass out of college, or they want to do something in the creative line, the marketing line, and they take these things up. In terms of influencers earning and new creators joining in, what is the kind of money that they earn? I'll be very clear about this. So I feel that initially you don't do content creation just for say that you want to earn money, because if you are in this thing for money, you can't grow, and it's very, very true. So I, from my personal experience, what I would suggest you upcomers that if you're doing something, if you have pursued something that is giving your monthly income, whatever revenue stream it may be, continue with that and keep this on the side until and unless you reach a point where you're confident enough to kind of give it like a full go. That happened with me. I was also not sure about the fact that okay, fine, because financial independence is very, very important, and if that is not there, even the passion, you will feel a little frustrated about it, which you should not. So I feel that until and unless you have a certain amount of financial independence, you should not do it full time at the moment. But I feel nowadays this could be more relevant at least a year back, but at the present time, I think if you want to pursue content creation full time, there could be a lot of prospects. One could be like affiliate marketing, right? So if you have an audience of even like 5,000 or 10,000, you can go and earn through the affiliate marketing streams. Again, there could be like brand endorsements. You can earn through brand endorsements. Even if you are a influencer with a 10K following, you can earn a certain amount. You can earn up to, say, I would give you figures because it would be easier for the audience to
Of course.
understand. You can earn up to at least 5 to 6K per brand project if you have like an audience between 5K to 10K. So even if you have an audience above that, like I would just say in terms of the grading of the following, so an influencer who has an audience of between 20 to 50 can earn up to 20 to 30 per project, per brand. So it goes on like that, it goes on increasing like that. So I think it's a big industry, but what really matters here is that how you talk to the brands, how you kind of make your mark, and how you're strict about the negotiations, the kind of interactions you do, because that is very important. And of course, picking up brands is very important, because when you start out, you want to do everything. But after like you reach, when you have a certain amount of audience who's actually consuming your content, you need to be very picky about the kind of brands you're picking up, because it really reflects on your persona or image. So that is what I would kind of say about.
But do you feel like that content creators have become saturated? Because there's so many content creators now, and there are limited brands, there are finite brands, but content creators are coming up every day. So, in that sense, do you feel like we are coming to a point of saturation, or do you think that no, there's a lot of more scope there? I mean, let more people come, no problem.
No, I think that of course it feels very saturated to kind of see similar content online, because almost everybody maybe is doing a certain amount of things which is very similar to the other one. So it gets a little boring and very repetitive for the consumer's point of view. But I feel that no, because I think again consistency really matters. So not anybody can anybody can start being an influencer or a content creator, but being consistent in that journey is very important, because it can really get to you. Like like I mentioned that the reels, they might not be working for that person, but to continuously be on that and keep on posting content is something, it's a lot of patience and hard work. and people don't understand the kind of patience, the kind of hard work that goes behind creating that one content, be it a professionally shot or an iPhone shot or whatever. So I think the consistency really matters. So if you're consistent enough, you will reach a certain level, maybe not today, maybe later. But I think the content, anybody can start, but I think being consistent and doing the same thing again and again is very difficult.
So, just for the audience, like I just wanted to summarize this conversation because it's so important, because there's so many young audiences who watch this and, they want to be
Hmm.
content creators. So I think it's fabulous advice that, when you start out, you need to have a job, something that makes you financially independent, because there is a chance that this won't work out for you. Right. And we talk about positive influences, and we talk about how some people have done well, and, how brands can give you money. But there is also the flip side to it, right? There are people, like, we always talk about success stories, but we don't talk about the people who've probably, like, been doing it for a long time and are giving up at that
Hmm.
point of time. So just extending the conversation on this note, what is the dark side, or what is the dark reality of content and social media, you feel?
So for me, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty in this platform. So one day you might be getting like really good brands, and the next day it might be not, because it's not a 9 to 5 job, right? But I feel, in my opinion, you have to treat it like a place where you need to show up every day. So even in terms of content creation, when I've taken a sabbatical from my medical work, I made it a point that I get up every day. Not all days are like, bright and like refreshing, but I try to treat this like a 9 to 5 job, because I want to like kind of get motivated every morning and make content, even if it's indoors or outdoors, doesn't matter. I need to kind of treat it as a like a proper full time job when I'm not doing something else at the moment. So I think that is one thing that you have to be really like show up. Showing up is really important, and then comes consistency along with that. And the dark side, like I mentioned, the lot of uncertainty. Some days you'll feel like, okay, fine, I'm getting a lot of brands, I'm getting a lot of, it might look really lucrative at that moment, but then some days you feel that, especially for me, when I have taken a sabbatical from a profession like medical, I would feel like I do think that okay, fine, if I've taken a bit of a gap, what if it hampers or affects, those things are always there. It's not a fun and merry journey whenever I am like doing content or showing content. So it's all in fun and merry, but I feel that there are times when I also go back and think that there's a lot of uncertainty, but again, it's the passion, I think, that keeps me going at the moment. So I think these would be the
Because
dark sides.
just to ask you a personal question, like there's so many mental health struggles also, because sometimes when you put out good videos and you get so much validation from the audiences,
Hmm.
and then suddenly there's a drop, like it's almost like you get a high, like you get so much love and validation, and then suddenly there's a baseline drop and you feel like, am I doing something wrong? And like, you have come out on top, but there's so many people who are doing the same thing. But like, how should they deal with their mental health struggles?
So with me, what happened, like you mentioned, that a lot of people are doing the same thing. So I kind of, started a trend in the city that, I'll go out and explore things, because at one point of time, people were exploring a lot of Delhi and Bombay based street shopping and all of that, but nobody was doing that in the city, in Kolkata. So I think I started that first, the kind of, making it a little personal and up close and showing them the hidden finds and everything. And then, of course, I think that's what the people whom I talk to, they told me, my friends and family, that if something is trending, it will get picked up very easily. And for me to kind of see that happening, like it really took me a bit of time to kind of understand, okay, fine, so is the content that I'm creating, is it that easy that it can get copied that easily? But then I felt that okay, fine, I mean, if it's something that people are taking as a trending topic or a trending conversation, I think it's good that I've created a thing like that. I think I have had my bad days when I was overthinking about these things, that okay, fine, like I created a certain way of creating content about these things, and then people are easily copying it. But then I feel that it's okay, because I think that this is giving a lot of prospect to newer creators who also want to make content on these topics. So I feel really good about it at the moment.
So, just extending this conversation a little further, like you said that this is not exactly a 9 to 5 job, but in so many ways it is. Like,
Hmm.
when people look at content creators or social media influencers, people think ये तो वेले लोग हैं. like content बना रहे हैं, पैसा कमा रहे हैं, कोई मेहनत नहीं है.
Hmm.
But there's so much that goes in the background, right? I mean, from how you will shoot, from how you will take the camera angles, from what content you will put in, like how the scripting is done, how well it has to be shot, which angles it will be edited, how it will be put out, which hashtags you will use. There's so many things, right? What do you say to all those parents, and what do you say to all those people who think content creators are, quote unquote, vele people?
So I mentioned about the fact that it's not a 9 to 5 job. The reason being that you don't have somebody to kind of go and report to. So you're your own boss, but again that comes with a lot of things that you have to manage yourself. Coming to the kind of content you want to create, the production, post production. So it's a lot of things that goes at the back if you want to put out that piece of content online. And I feel it's a full-time job, of course, because I mean the kind of energy that goes behind one content piece is incredible. Like for me right now, if I have to like kind of think of a topic which I feel that could has a potential to go viral, or I need to make that kind of content piece, I have to decide what kind of clothes I'm gonna wear, what kind of makeup has to be done, how I'm gonna frame the brief, the kind of the kind of flow the content has to be. So there's a lot that goes behind that one
And
content
especially in
piece.
fashion, sometimes when I look at those reels, like I really like, honestly, like when I see people that they're changing 4 clothes, 5 clothes, I don't change clothes for days. And like for a reel, for a 60-second reel, when fashion content creators, they're changing 4 clothes, 5 clothes, and they're doing it, that those transitions are so amazing
Right.
that I sometimes wonder it's like a full movie production
Yeah,
with
and
limited within those 60 seconds.
like you mentioned, it's actually because the kind of content we take, the content could be like a 2-3 hour long content, and then to kind of brief it up into like a reel format, which would be maybe like of 15 to 20 seconds. That is the toughest part, because like understanding what parts the audience would like and what they will not consume, what would be that hook that would kind of make the people stay on that particular reel, stop and see the entire thing. So those things are really really important nowadays, and it really
Plays in your mind.
plays in my mind.
Because content creation has become like news nowadays, like because people used to watch India Today, Republic TV, and the NDTV and different channels for news. And while they might still be watching it, but people who are younger, who are like the Gen Z's and alphas, who are in school or college or just passing out, they are now relying more on influencers and content creators for news. It's
Right.
almost like we used to have those travel channels.
Right.
Now there are no
right.
travel channels at all. There are YouTubers and there are Instagrammers.
Right.
Like when I want to go somewhere, I don't go on, travel channels and see, oh, let me search for a tape of Vietnam or Delhi or whatever. I go on Instagram and, put a hashtag Delhi travel. So something like that,
Right,
just to
but
see what places I can go to.
But I think my inspiration also from exploring places actually came from those travel channels, because I used to see them a lot, and because those were in a longer format. But I always in my head that I wanted to be kind of there. But of course, when I was when I was seeing those things, social media was not much in prevalence. So really, it would look so nice that people are going out, they're just shooting, eating good food, and making content and talking about it. That would be really really something I would get inspired by. And to kind of brief that up into like a 15-20 second reel, and also making it informative at that point and not boring the audience, is a challenge, I feel.
No, absolutely. Because, half the time people are also watching news now on Instagram. Like, if something happens, they want to know what the influencer is saying about it, or what the content creator is saying about it.
Right.
But do you also feel that is also a negative thing, in the sense that because a lot of influencers might come on with a personal agenda or with a bias that, okay, some news channels might not have. I wouldn't say all of them. But, do you think that is also fair for a content creator to bring out news to the public in their own way?
So I feel something should be kept to what, for example, in news, I personally feel that, because for example, if it's a trending topic, a content creator who's in the maybe situation like they want to gain views, they might want to make a reel on the trending topic just to gain views. So those things happen a lot. So there would be like trending conversations, like you see some words and all that are trending, so they might want to talk about that because these things are trending. But if you ask me, if it's a news something like that, like a proper news which can be heard from other places, then of course listening and knowing others' opinions are important. But what I don't like is that, trending topics being used in different ways to kind of gain like views, or I don't know. I feel that's not a right thing to do.
Right. But Megha, you're at a position now where, the content creator economy has evolved. We just had like a national award for content creators.
Right.
And, we are having so many things. It's being recognized finally as like, something that youngsters could look for. Like, what is that? Like, how do you feel in this moment as a content creator yourself who started when this industry was just on the verge of being a pioneering industry?
So for me, when I saw that, like Modi ji is actually recognizing content creation as a thing, that my first thing I was called my mom. I was like, see, this is what you told me. See, people are actually, thinking of it as a profession, and now they understand. But still, these are like more pointers. These are like pointers which are fueling to my, those things which I actually used to tell my parents or my friends that, okay, fine, it is not a joke, that, I'm actually doing it out of passion, and this is something that's gonna, get bigger. So I think these are fueling up, and I think now in present day, people don't come up to me and tell me that, okay, fine, you could have thought of something else to do also, and not do it like at a full-fledged thing. So I think that kind of understanding has changed at the moment with all these things.
What do you feel is the future for content creators? Like, do you feel like we're going into the metaverse?
It's again like the uncertainty comes into being. That's there, but I think right now it's a booming industry, and it's going to grow more and more because there are a lot of more people and businesses, homegrown brands, bigger businesses. They are getting a lot of benefit out of the social media marketing and everything. So I think at this moment, at least in the next 5 years, if I'm seeing it, it's gonna be bigger. Can't predict about like the next 20 years, but in the next 5 to 8 years, it's gonna get bigger.
So who are your top 3 influencers or content creators that you follow?
In terms of fashion, I really follow Kritika Khurana, Boho Girl, because I feel her content is like very relatable. Very recently, I started following Foodpharmer because obviously, but then whenever I'm eating something, I just feel a lot of guilt. But then I think what he's doing is great. And obviously, the niche he has picked up, health comedy, is like really, really different and unique. And in terms of that, I don't kind of get influenced or maybe kind of strictly follow somebody, but I think I see a lot of mixed content which I really like to see, or whatever comes on my feed. So there's not specific like a guru or like an inspiration which I actually follow. But these would be some of the names.
Megha, thank you so much for all these insights, because I think a lot of audiences who are watching this, especially people who want to create content, will take a lot of benefit out of this. You've been wonderful, and you've given us such amazing points to ponder about, especially me, because I'm a young creator myself. Thank you so much, Megha, for coming.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. And I'm so glad that I could actually resonate and talk to you regarding these things in whatever I wanted to say. So thank you so much for having me.
Now, before we end, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Decodeage. Decodeage is India's first longevity research company aiming to increase the health span of people. The supplements and tests are based on the latest scientific breakthroughs in the field of longevity and aging sciences. The supplements they provide target the biological mechanisms that cause aging. For example, as we age, the NAD plus levels in our body decline, leading to mitochondrial dysfunction and genomic instability. 2 main reasons for biological aging. Now, by supplementing with Decodage's NMN, one can replenish the NAD levels in the body and tackle aging at a cellular level. Now, there are numerous clinical trials and experiments indicating that NMN increases the health span of individuals who consume it. I take it myself and it feels great. Apart from NMN, Decodeage offers other longevity supplements like spermidine, AKG, Fisetin, and transresveratrol. If you want to start your healthy aging journey, then Decodeage is the place to be. Do visit decodage.com and use my coupon code Anant to get a discount.